It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be among you today to discuss one of the biggest issues of our time. Unfortunately, we do not have too much time to discuss it, but I think we will get to very important points on the issue of Afghanistan, focusing on what happens with nation building when it goes wrong. We will look at the 20-year story and the still elusive effort to create democracy in the country. And I would first of all like to introduce our panelists. We are very honored to have among us two MPs from Afghanistan, Ms. Nazifa Bek and Ms. Shagufa Noorzai, who recently arrived in Greece. And also on our panel are Dawn Nakagawa, the Executive Vice President of the Berggruen Institute, which is a think tank established to develop ideas about how to reshape political and social institutions in the face of the great transformations taking place right now. And also among us, we are honored to have Stephen Erlanger, the diplomatic correspondent for Europe for the New York Times, who is a stalwart of our forum for years now. Without further ado, because we don't have too much time, I would like to begin with the experience of our two guests from Afghanistan. What happened over the past 20 years? What went wrong, and what remains?
Good morning and warmest greeting to all, to respect the people of Greece and all newspapers, all of you. I'm Nazifa Bek, Member of Parliament of Afghanistan, and I was Deputy Economic Commission in the past, and I am teacher for 7 years and work with women and students in Afghanistan. But the weather of Afghanistan and current situation, I'm very sad because the 20 years our difficult work with humans or all of part of men's, women's, students, all of part going back. First of all, I'm thank for everyone who helped me to my teams to come to the Greece. Thanks for all of international group and the Greece people and the Greece government, because he has receiving warmly and respect for all of you. On behalf of the group and I'm speaking following the fall of Kabul. The Taliban, the terror, the region in the city cannot be described. People were in hurry and left their homes because the situation is very bad. They left the homes and go relatives' homes, hide there because they are hurry about why Taliban do for something for there. But me, my part of my team, the left of Afghanistan, went to the airport. We want to leave Afghanistan because our situation is bad. This day I cannot go from Afghanistan because this day is a suicide attack in the airport. 300 people there. People killed and a suicide attack. Me, my family, and my relatives, I'm part of colleagues there. I was very sad, but because I feeling now the past day in the airport. After the incident, my 7-year-old daughter, her name is Gawarshot, she's with me. She's crying now and crying, Mama, Taliban in the sleep, Mama, Taliban coming and killing me. I will not forget this for every time because it's a bad day for me and for my family, for my colleagues, all of my team. There was once I will provide you with example of what we lost in Afghanistan. or lost in Afghanistan. Our country, after the Taliban, take our example, more than print, print and video publication, 90% cannot work, are now blocked. The girls not allowed to go to schools now. They are not go to school. It is the bad face of Afghanistan now, but the 20 years bad. Taliban killed freedom of speech. Every freedom is not going on in Afghanistan. 1 million girls are not go to schools now. The school door is closed for girls also. The gates of universities for girls, the gate of university are not allowed to go to school for girls. The gates of the 10,000 of female government employees are not allowed to work. The gates of both houses of parliament are closed now. Do not have anything called the House of Democracy, anything. It's our.
Thank you. Did you expect to see this day? At any time over the past 20 years, did you fear that this that you're describing now might happen?
No. Every time or not feel this bad day because it's once
Did you feel that you were protected, that the society that you were building would be able to survive?
No, because the President Mohammad Ashraf Ghani or the process of Doha is not a bad process because Sorry.
Well, that's okay. We can continue with your colleague if you like, and then you can come back. Would you like to?
No.
Or carry on.
Feel the process in Qatar, the continued intervention of neighboring countries, especially Pakistan, and the internal factors, the incumbent of the government and the irresponsible role of foreign forces from Afghanistan, and the responsible flight of President Mohammad Ashraf Ghani. At the crucial and historic juncture undermined in the trust of the 35 million people and distorted the achievement of the last 20 years of people of Afghanistan and must be prosecuted by the international courts. Mm-hmm. It's the bad day is once.
So there was this chain of events that created the conditions for the breakdown, the collapse. There were several factors playing out at the same time. This was not something you could predict would happen.
Yeah.
I see. Ms. Noorzai, would you like to add to the issue of what happened over the 20 years and how did this all fall apart so quickly?
Okay, so I start. Assalamu alaikum. I am Shagufa Noorzai from Afghanistan, a parliament member. I am happy and lucky to hear in a most historic and proud country in the world. And as a country whose children enlightened the world with their knowledge, who introduced democracy and the idea of a republic in the world for the first time. I want to thankful to Greece and people, to all of the people, that they committed women rights. Sorry, I was here. They committed women rights and human rights, who granted us place to stay. We the sitting Afghans here, we fought very tirelessly for the women's rights. And like you, and we sacrificed. We hoped that we would bring human rights, women's rights, democracy, implement democracy, the implement, and freedoms, same as you. But due to the weakness of our government and the lack of cooperation from the international community and the interventions, everything was destroyed. Previously, international community began to implement the women's rights and democracy, but they unfortunately, which was not successful, and sustainable, which in itself was a strategic and political failure. They forgot the women's rights. They forgot the women's rights and democracy. They came out very irresponsible. We fought for gender equality and justice for 20 years. While a witness an ongoing war, explosions, killing, and discrimination against women. I fought again and again, and I said that when day will come one day, may my name influence to society as a living human being forever. But I had no idea that I would die in a movement. That I see, I drink, I eat, but my thoughts will die. I will never think about this. And we struggled for 20 years, but this all of thing would be zero. We lost they killed our thoughts. Without freedom, without freedom of expression, I don't want to be a moving body. I want to alive my thoughts always. I can't express my feel, how I came out from Kabul. I shipped my face, even I shipped my face. I will never forget when they flogged my brother and they didn't recognize me. And they told me, if our government forbade us, didn't forbid us, I will flog you 30 times. And I see to them, and I was like shocked and silent. But there were thousands hatreds and resentments in my heart, but I couldn't say anything. Now, our girls in Afghanistan, they do not go to school. They do not go to university. All of girls of Afghanistan, they are disappointed. They want to go away from country. I'm thinking about those girls that they are there now. My country darkened. Girls do not sing. The young people haven't pushed. Young people do not sing it together. At the present, the women's rights in Afghanistan not safe, even their education. And the half of this responsibility goes to international community. But we don't want to leave our struggle. Me and my friends are all determined to start a human struggle and litigation. Once we are elected, we will launch a campaign for Afghan women to be fully supported by NGOs and international organizations. I have a lot of things for saying, a lot of feeling. We bring with ourselves very bad memories from Afghanistan. I am really thankful from everyone to help us to come here. And we will help those women that they are in Afghanistan, and I will be more strong than past than now for my Afghan women, to support them, to stand them, to be their voice to all of in the world. I will struggle for education, for their education, for their work. And I am sure we will do that.
That I wanted to ask you about. Do you feel that the 20 years that passed have left something behind? Is there something that you can work with now from outside Afghanistan to work with the people in Afghanistan to keep alive the dream of democracy and gender equality and so on? Is there something is still there? Are there seeds of a resistance in the country? Are there people you can work with and create something still inside Afghanistan?
No.
No.
I told that my country is darkened. When you go to our country, everything is silent. The most that people that work for democracy, for education, for litigation of people, they had gone from Afghanistan. But I'm sure when we are here, we are another place, we will can do something for them. But if who's there into the Afghanistan, they can to stand and they can to out their voice because the Taliban flogged them.
Right. But inside the home, for example, does a mother teach her son and her daughter that life can be different, that they can build a better society? Do the people have inside them a resistance that they cannot show in the street now, but perhaps inside? Something that has remained from all the work that you have done over the 20 years. Do you feel that there is that perhaps perceptions change a little bit?
No,
Please go ahead.
If we be in the government of Taliban, everything is not changed. The younger mans or the women and the students cannot go and through their lives and working anything or for home, for family, for everything.
Okay, now we heard about the responsibility of the international community as well in what has happened. Dawn, do you have something to say on that?
This is a hard act to follow.
Yes.
The stories that we've just heard, I think one of the reflections is obviously the abject failure of the United States to create something that was enduring, and the rush to leave. Obviously, the human tragedy that left behind is real. I think whether it was a flawed project from the beginning, I think that your question about is there anything left behind, is there anything to say that the 20 years and the trillions of dollars spent trying to create a democratic system, will that be the seeds of the democracy that emerges eventually? I think that's probably the most hopeful thought that we can have. You know, democracies emerge under a myriad of different kinds of conditions, but there are certain conditions that need to be there for it to hold. Whether Afghanistan has those right now, I don't know, but maybe the seeds that were planted will be the revolution that comes later, because democracy does have to be earned. It can't be imposed, right? There are a lot of theories about how it comes about. Not one of them says it can be brought in from the outside. It has to be the aspiration of the people, the will of the people to fight for it and to be willing to die for it. And that is literally how it emerges. And I think maybe the brave people who are willing to either stay or go back and fight for it are the ones that will earn the democracy eventually.
Stephen, what is the role of the international community, and did we learn anything from this?
Well, first of all, I mean, if I may, just to thank you both for your testimony and your commitment. Almost anything one says now seems smarmy, and I don't mean that, but I know everyone here was very moved by what you said and wishes you well. I was particularly struck when you said you just don't want to be a body moving through space, but a person with thoughts and accomplishments and deeds, and that I found very, very, very moving. So there's a lot of shame, I think, in the international community. There's humiliation. It's part of the anger in Europe about the United States. It's not that the Europeans particularly wanted to stay in Afghanistan. This was an American project. And so in the end, it was the Americans who were going to decide when it was going to end. But the Europeans, probably even more than the Americans, invested in the idea of democracy building, nation building, gender equality, education, to try to transform a different culture. And to some degree, we can see succeeded, by the way. You both are prime examples of at least the success in part of that project. And, you know, I think back to the Afghanistan of the king. It was a very different place. Not that I knew it, but I've seen pictures and so on. So, you know, the other thing one needs to remember is I think the Taliban is not monolithic. I mean, it's very divided. It's different from province to province. The rules are different. It's fighting inside itself about what's going to happen. We don't have a government yet. The international community has some leverage, not on the ideology, but on the aid, on money, on recognition. But I think in general, you know, there is a sense of shame and humility, I hope. And, you know, this is, at least in American terms, it's, you know, the end of the 9/11 GWAT, right, the global war on terrorism, which metamorphosized without people thinking it through into something else, into a different kind of project. The Americans could have left in 2010, I think, and probably the Afghan government would have been better off, to be honest. But everyone had kind of gotten tired of it. America's eyes were moving elsewhere. And anyone who thought Joe Biden wasn't going to leave wasn't listening, wasn't paying attention. And personally, you know, we can get into this, but personally, I think the Pentagon kind of did what it always does, which is it didn't want to leave, was ordered to leave, so it said, yes, sir, the way it does, and then got out without really coordinating with anybody. I mean, they just left, boom. And now they blame it on the State Department for not getting the right visas and so on. But the fact of the matter is, I think there was a kind of resentment on the part of the Pentagon. And of course, as soon as you begin to withdraw troops, the troops that remain are more vulnerable, and so you want to get out fast. So I think it was just a big blow to the image of competence that the Biden administration is supposed to show. And, you know, we'll see what happens down. It's still really early days. The big question in my mind, of course, I'm sure in your minds too, is I see Taliban kids from the countryside with smartphones, right? They wouldn't have had smartphones 20 years ago. So they have access in a way to a different world. And one hopes that the changes that are happening everywhere in the world, from Iran to Pakistan, will also make a difference there. But for the moment, I think we should just listen to the testimony, do all we can to help the people who have come out and try to keep faith with the people inside.
I agree, and we'll get back to that, but I'd just like to round up this section. Does the concept of nation building, with its implicit arrogance, if I might say, survive this? Will there ever be this kind of intervention again? Will there ever be this kind of excuse for any kind of intervention again?
I think the question is, should there be, right? The nation-building project or nation-building initiatives haven't been successful for a very long time. You can't point to successes possibly since the Marshall Plan. I mean, seriously. So I think it's a flawed idea. You know, there was a period of time in our history where we were exporting ideology And back home, we were winning the war of hearts and minds because we were actually succeeding, right? So if you think about those times when nation building did work, the credibility of America could stand on its reputation back home. You know, middle class was growing, the economy was doing well. I think, you know, even though we weren't living up to our democratic values really, and we weren't going to wake up to that for another couple of decades, there was still this perception of a democracy that was thriving, right? I think that the idea, given all the problems that the United States has at this moment, and you know, our internal human rights record and our own flawed democracy, and how that is so apparent to the rest of the world, it's hard, I think, for us to go anywhere and say that we're going to export what we have. Who would want it? I mean, honestly, who would want it, right? So I do think there are a lot of problems with the credibility of that and the idea that we can sort of export our values. With that said, you hear these women and you hear this sort of, you know, there is a universality to wanting to have your voice heard, you know, to not having meaning in your life unless you have the freedom of expression and the freedom to have your own thoughts. So I think the universal values of democracy do stand. How can we transmit that? How can we transplant it? How can we help nations that want it? I don't know that we have the answer to that question, but I'm pretty sure the nation building idea is not the way to do it.
I mean, if I could add to that, I mean, we did pretty well in Germany and Japan, but we conquered them, and we eliminated the governments, basically, and rewrote their constitutions and stayed there. We still have troops in Germany. We still have troops in Japan. We have thousands of troops in South Korea, right? I mean, the West still has forces in Kosovo. Kosovo, I would say, is not a half-bad example of nation building that's worked, but it's tiny. And again, it was the result of a war that ended. In Afghanistan, in a sense, we won the war, and then we hung around to try to do something else. And the war came back, right? I mean, we didn't go to war against the Taliban. We went to war against Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and later against ISIS. And I do wonder sometimes, had we worked with the Taliban government once it had sued for peace early on, whether things would have been a bit different, but it's very hard to know. I mean, I remember, let's be fair, I think a lot of this disintegration started with the second Iraq War under George Bush, and there's a deep arrogance about that. This was a war of choice, a lot of fake intelligence, but I remember Democrats saying to me, this is our next big project. We've defeated communism, now we're going to remake the Middle East. I mean, so it was a bipartisan ambition. And I remember saying, you're out of your mind. I said, the British couldn't do, we don't have the patience to do this. We're Americans, you know. We just don't have the patience for this. And then we've also kind of built up, and I mean nothing particular here. There's this whole world of NGOs and people who want to do good and have money to do good, but who are not always so politically sensitive. This is not the Berggruen Institute, but who have their own interests, and I admire their interests, but they're not always very realistic about their ambitions. So I think part of what we have is a crisis of broken expectations, and a lot of people need to heal.
And as you said, shame and humility will be very useful in the international sphere, if that can be harnessed fruitfully. I'd like to finish with a question to both of you now. When you go back to Afghanistan, what would you do different? How would you create conditions that you would be happy to live in? What went wrong in the 20 years, and what would you do differently now?
First of all, our request, the word of people, please don't leave alone the Afghanistan people. I think this time I can go Afghanistan. The Taliban government is not in Afghanistan work because Taliban faces don't agree work with women every part of the life. I feeling there I work with part of and lobby for Afghanistan to change of the face now the system of now of Taliban. My request, please sanction of the system of the Taliban because they are all part of terrorists. Our people, our country, not the Taliban agree with the government of the Taliban. My colleagues, all of my colleagues, I work about the country, every part of the world, for NGOs, for UNs. I request for the people of Afghanistan, help for people of Afghanistan. Yes.
From outside?
Yeah.
Inside, what would you do?
Inside, work with people for the. I should the inside. I cannot do anything this time now.
No, but let's say that at some point the Taliban changes. There is no Taliban. You go back.
The Taliban go back.
No, you go back. What would you do differently to create a new society? The time Taliban go our country, I will back to my country and work with our peoples, because I am member of parliament and responsive more of people back of me. And you? What would you do differently when you go back to Afghanistan?
At the first, I want to tell to the international community to pressure on Taliban that they change their behavior in front of the woman, young generation, and the girls. Then we can go to there, we can work there, because now the girls cannot go to the school, do not go to the school and the university to work. So we can go there. But when the international community pressure on them, that change their behavior, and we hope that we have a good peace, but not like this, that all of thoughts will die. We don't want to, our thoughts will die. We want to be alive, we want to work like a human. But they know, the Taliban don't want to be like this. Just they thinking about this, to how they put the woman into the room and they don't want to out them. This is their behavior. We can't go if their behavior like this. And they flog, nowadays, they flog the woman, the girls. Last day I see the woman video. It is very, very dangerous for all of us.
Yes.
That my country, that I don't want to see my country in this situation. I think that I go back to the 20 years ago, feel the same situation. In 1 month, I was into the Kabul. I was at the one room that nobody, even my family don't know about me, where I am. But one day, just I go out when I come to the Kabul, came out from Kabul. I thought everything is died, like this. Nobody you can see into the street, no one can go to the school and the market, the mall, everything is empty. It's like the zombie coming to the city and everybody at home, they are frightened. Like this. So I can't go there. As a human, I requested to all of community, international community, the humanity don't have border. It is my idea. The humanity don't have idea.
Yes.
But do something. Just pressure on Taliban to change their behavior in front of the women, girls. Even the men, they said, we don't want to live here in Afghanistan. I told them, why? You are free, you can go there. They said, no. The situation and the situation is not for living because our women, our girls are not in good situation.
Yes, in a society where half the population is not free, no one can be free. This is what we see in democracy everywhere. Thank you very much for this very moving testimony.
Thank you.
And what we see is that the international community has to play a very important role from now on within the limits of what they should be doing, but definitely putting pressure for change.
Yeah.
And we wish you the best and a safe return one day to your homeland.
I want to say at the end of, I want to say to all of that it's okay. Yes, I am a woman, but I am not a weak. I believe on myself. I can change the most of things. I am a woman, but I am not weak.
Really not.
Thank you.